comes to talk, and we got a lot to talk about. I'm here to tell you. I want to cover a few things here, but what I'm going to start first with is something that just came out of Canada. Doug Ford, who's the Premier of Ontario, isn't he the brother of that crackhead that was the mayor up there? I think he's been smoking some of the crack that his brother left behind, because he is really making some very dramatic threats against the United States and the American people. So I'm going to cover this a little bit, and then I'm going to get into some of the other issues. But this is first off about Canada. And anytime I talk about Canada, I bring this up because it really illustrates the point of what a pathetic country Canada is. And Canada has gotten by all these centuries on America's coattails. That's it. 80% of Canadians live within 150 miles of the U.S. border, right? They're a big country. They're bigger than us land-wise. I know a lot of it's, Arctic and everything else, but it's a very large country, and 80% of their population live within 150 miles of the United States, which tells you what? They are nothing without us, that they're completely on our coattails, Canada. That's a reality. And I know Canada may not realize that because there's a lot of national pride. Also, they only have 10% of the American population. And a lot of the manufacturing that goes on in Canada, a huge chunk of it, most of it, because their population is so small, only 10% of the United States, most of the things that they produce are for the United States. There's a show that's a Canadian show that was on, I can't remember what cable channel it was, and I'm sure it's online. You ever see How It's Made? How It's Made. I used to love that show. I used to watch it all the time when my daughter was a kid. How It's Made is a Canadian show. It's almost exclusively in Canada, showing you factories and things that are in Canada making things. And other than the time when I saw the episode where they were making those stupid curling, whatever those things are called, and hockey sticks, everything else is for the United States. Canada, without the United States, is nothing. So I'm going to play just in a moment Doug Ford, the Ontario Premier, and this threat that he's making against the American people and the United States. And they're going to lose, and they're going to lose big time. And another thing you have to understand about Canada, Canada is made up with a bunch of American haters. They hated the United States from the very beginning. When the 13 American colonies separated and formed our great country, Canada, they were a British colony too, and they didn't join the 13 colonies, did they? No, they were the loyalist, and the coward loyalists that sided with the King and the American Revolution, a lot of them went to Canada. So Canada, like Europe, been screwing us all these years. So anyway, this is Doug Ford. Listen.
We are the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world. We buy over 3,600 products from 35 states. I talked to the governor of Kentucky and Mitch McConnell. Don't touch our bourbon. I'm going after absolutely everything. And I don't want to. We keep the lights on to 1.5 million homes and manufacturing in New York, in Michigan, and in Minnesota. If he wants to destroy our economy and our families, I will shut down the electricity going down to the U.S. And I'm telling you, we will do it.
Okay, now I'll play more of this. This is Doug Ford. He's the Premier of Ontario, which I guess is like the governor. So not only is he threatening the United States and threatening the American people, he's threatening to shut off, I don't think they got the power to do it, but he's threatening to shut off the electricity to millions of American people. How many of those people are in hospitals? And by the way, it's the wintertime. Up north, here in Florida, it's in the 80s, but up north, it's freezing. So he's going to shut off the electricity during the wintertime? This is really, honestly, this is like an act of war. I'll rewind it a little bit and we'll play more. Again, this is Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario.
After absolutely everything. And I don't want to. We keep the lights on to 1.5 million homes and manufacturing in New York, in Michigan, and in Minnesota. If he wants to destroy our economy and our families, I will shut down the electricity going down to the U.S. And I'm telling you, we will do it. It's unfortunate. I would rather ship you more electricity, ship you more critical minerals. I want to ship you more.
Boy, this guy, he's all of Canada. Me, I. What. Someone mentioned Trudeau. There's an election in October in Canada, and that's when Trudeau will be out.
Energy, more potash to keep your farmers going, and uranium that you use for your nuclear power. It comes through from Saskatchewan over to Ontario, and it's going to be a massive, massive problem. I'm telling you, we love the Canadians love Americans.
Oh, yeah.
I love the U.S. Everyone does. And not one American friend. When I lived there for 20 years, I've talked to all of them. Hardcore Republicans are saying this is the biggest mistake President Trump has done, and we're dead against it.
Who are these Republicans? Mitch McConnell and his Chinese handlers. And, Doug Ford, he's sitting in front of three flags, Canadian flag, American flag, and the other one I'm assuming is Ontario. But he's got this sign behind him that says, Canada is not for sale, which is the same thing that Mike Myers was wearing at the, was it Saturday Night Live? He was on Saturday Night Live this weekend. This whole thing that Canada is not for sale, that we don't want Canada. The reason that President Trump keeps talking about making it the 51st state and Governor Trudeau and everything, well, a couple reasons. One, there's an election in October. Trudeau has stepped down. Trump brought regime change to Canada and got rid of this globalist commie Trudeau. So that's one. But the reason he talks about Canada being a state is not, we don't want Canada to be a state. If they became a state, they'd get 2 senators and a whole bunch of members of the House. Okay, it would mess up everything in Congress. Plus, they'd get votes in the presidential election. A bunch of Democrats. We don't want Canada. The reason he talks about Canada being a state is to illustrate that we're supporting Canada more than we're supporting states. He's saying that we give them so much money that they might as well be a state. All right, back to this idiot Doug Ford.
And so, I've yet to find who supports him.
And so, if I'm hearing you correctly, you are ready, sir, to go to war, to go to a trade war with the United States, with the Trump administration.
It's the last thing we want to do. It's one person that's coming to attack us economically. Your closest friend, your treasured ally.
Really? What has Canada ever done for the United States? Until a couple weeks ago, they were allowing drug traffickers to bring fentanyl and heroin and illegal people into the country, including terrorists from the northern border. They're our ally? Are you kidding me? When has Canada ever done anything for the United States? Do you know?
That will stand shoulder to shoulder with you in every situation you faced. And he's attacking the person, his number one customer. There's no country in the world that buys more products off the U.S. than we do. We're the number one trading customer to 28 states. And a lot of them are red states. They're going to feel the pain like they've never felt before. We're going to feel the pain. But I'll tell you, Canadians are resilient. We're strong. We're proud. And we're going to fight back like they've never seen before. And I'm sorry to the American people that your president has decided to do this. I apologize, but he's giving us no choice. There's nothing wrong with our trading. He keeps saying, oh, they're taking money. No, that's not accurate. Matter of fact, if you take out our oil, that you take 4.3 million barrels a day, and we keep things going, outside of that, take the energy to the side, you have a $55 billion surplus.
If you take out all this, if you take out the deficit, you have a surplus.
Which,
we don't need any of their oil. We have more oil and natural gas and coal than any other countries in the world. Okay? The only reason we get oil from Canada is because of these lefties that don't let us drill for our own oil. We don't need any of that Canadian oil. And by the way, don't you wish he was so dead against the crack dealers that were selling his brother crack as he is against Trump?
which is good. That's fine. America has a $55 million process. And $55 billion more in trade. And God bless them. We want to expand the trade. We want to create an AmCam fortress.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, an AmCam fortress. Oh, my goodness. Canada thinks they're a player. Give me a break. Oh, they import a lot from the United States because they got nothing up there. Yeah. And there's no way they would win anything. in a trade war. Yeah. I mean, we're giving them nonstop money. Now, the president today, a lot of announcements from the president, but, Ukraine. President Trump had the perfect peace plan to end this war, and Zelensky was in a panic that the war would end, right? And all his, everyone's blaming all these American politicians for getting him worked up, and I'm sure that factored in. But, what about all those Ukrainian oligarchs that were the ones behind him, that made him the president? You don't think they had a hand in this? You think Zelensky's getting a lot of money? Sure, he's getting rich. But what about all those Ukrainian billionaires that have been backing him? And they don't say this anymore because they don't want you to know it. But they said forever, for years, that Ukraine is the most corrupt country in Europe. They're a bunch of outlaw gangsters. It's basically, Ukraine is, the whole country, is a modern-day version of Prohibition-era Chicago. That's it. There are a bunch of Al Capones that are running the entire country, and they're stealing all of our money too. And they don't care if people die, so long as they get their money. So they asked President Trump today at the White House about Zelensky.
What do you need to see from President Zelensky to restart these negotiations?
Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because, as you know, that's right there. That's the border. This country really was like the fence on the border. It was very important to Europe, and I'm not knocking Europe. I'm saying that they were a lot smarter than Joe Biden, because Joe Biden didn't have a clue. He just gave money hand over fist, and they should have been able to equalize with us. In other words, if we gave $1, they should have given. Well, we gave 350 billion. They probably gave 100, but on top of it all, they get their money back because they're doing it in the form of a loan, and it's a secured loan. So when I saw that, which I've known about for a little while, I said it's time for us to be smart. At the same time, it's great for them because they get us.
See, now here's the thing. Somebody in the chat said the EU's given more. No, they haven't given anything. They have given loans where they're going to own Ukraine when this is all over.
In the country, taking the rare earth, which is going to fuel this big engine, and especially the engine that we've in a very short time created, and we get something, and we're there. We have a presence there. With all of that being said, I want one thing to happen. I want all of those young people to stop being killed. They're being killed by the thousands every single week. Last week, 2,700 were killed. 2,700 young, in this case, just about.
Wow, 2,700. That's almost 9/11. They're having almost a 9/11 every week, a Pearl Harbor every week, and Zelensky can't be bothered.
All young boys from Ukraine and from Russia. And that's not young people from the United States, but it's on a human basis. I want to see it stop. The money is one thing, but the death. And they're losing thousands of soldiers a week. And that's not including the people that get killed every time a town goes down or a missile goes into a town. And I want to see it stop.
What do you need?
So that's the president today. Now, Ukraine, they keep telling us what a bad guy Putin is and all these things. I'm not defending Putin, but who cares? The United States, we have a long history of siding with dictators when it's in our interest. And over the weekend, I was talking about this. I gave two examples. There's others, but these are the two big ones. In the Second World War, we allied with two dictators. Two. One was Stalin, and the other one was Churchill. A lot of people don't know this, but Churchill suspended elections in England during the war. They didn't have elections for about 10 years when he became prime minister. 10 years. So he was, in effect, a dictator, Churchill. But we were allied with both of those dictators, Churchill and Stalin, to defeat the Nazis. There was a greater good to it. So this idea that, we don't... And I'll tell you another thing. Gaddafi, after Ronald Reagan bombed Libya in, 87? We didn't hear from Gaddafi anymore. He was funding and organizing terrorism throughout the world. And if you remember, there was that big bombing at that discotheque in Germany that killed some American service personnel. Reagan bombed Libya. And then all of a sudden, not only did we not hear from him for a long time, But Gaddafi helped us in keeping some stability with the Islamic terrorist over in his area of the Middle East for quite a while, until, okay, then Obama took him out for some strange reason. So we have a very long history of aligning ourselves with dictators when it's in the U.S. best interest. But you got to understand something about Ukraine. You know, the United States and Canada are completely different. Not just different countries, but different cultures. And, you know, people that aren't American probably think that we're not alike that much at all. We don't. You heard Ford; he's got that funny accent. You know, they say a bunch of words in funny ways, and their government and their culture, they don't have freedom of speech, of expression, of anything like we have here. Ukraine and Russia, they're the same people. Okay, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, was part of Russia forever. So, you know, all of this corruption and everything that is true of Putin is just as true with the Ukrainian people. They're the same. They're the same culture. All right, that's the reality. And I think one of the reasons that Zelensky and the Ukrainians make all these accusations against Putin, which are probably most of them true, maybe all of them, I don't know. It's true of them too. It's right out of Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. Accuse your opponent of doing what it is you're doing. Yeah, they have different languages, but it's still the same culture. It's the same culture, Russian Soviet culture. They think the same way. They were educated in the same culture. Now, AOC has very well been committing some crimes, and she was very concerned about it. She reached out the other day, it was reported, to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, to find out if she's being investigated for her crime. And her crime is helping felons, federal felons, fugitives from federal justice, helping them to evade federal agents and escape capture. And of course, what I'm talking about is AOC helping the illegals. And she gave an interview on National Public Radio where she confessed this. This is AOC on NPR.
You had a recent dispute, if that's the right word, with Tom Homan, the president's Homeland Security czar, so-called.
Hear this guy in public radio sucking off the taxpayer. Did you hear it? You hear those so-called little jerk? They're such snobs on NPR.
You had a recent dispute, if that's the right word, with Tom Homan, the president's Homeland Security czar, so-called. You held an online forum, a Know Your Rights forum, that he didn't like. What were you doing? What was your goal as you saw it?
My job is to educate and act as a liaison of critical information to my constituents.
I guess her constituents are illegal aliens. I'll play the rest of this. So she was putting together these seminars to help federal fugitives from justice, illegal aliens, on how to evade justice and how to escape it and how to avoid capture, right? And by the way, all these people that think she's pregnant because she's gained weight, she's just drinking all the time, okay? She's a drunk, she drinks a lot, and she's putting on the pounds, okay? That's why she's gaining weight. You think she's gotten impregnated by this doughboy that she's supposedly with? But take the illegal migrants out of it. What if a member of Congress put together workshops to bank robbers who are also federal fugitives, explaining to bank robbers how they can avoid capture, avoid arrest, and how they can hide from the feds? What would happen? You'd get arrested. You'd get arrested. You can't do that. You are aiding and abetting federal fugitives, right? If you knowingly are helping a fugitive, you are committing a crime, right? Remember when OJ didn't turn himself in, and the police chief said, if you give aid and help Mr. Simpson, you are guilty of, that's it. So she's confessing to a crime. So let me rewind a little bit, and then we'll go through the rest of it. This is AOC on NPR talking to this liberal jerk.
My job is to educate and act as a liaison of critical information to my constituents.
Oh.
And I was informing all of my constituents of their constitutional protections. And in particular, their constitutional protections against illegal search and seizure in the United States.
Holman was upset, I suppose, because he felt that you were giving advice to people who were here illegally.
That's right.
Were you?
I was giving advice to all of my constituents. Yeah.
Doesn't she sound like a defendant? I think AOC's scared. I think AOC is afraid that she is going to be arrested for aiding these federal fugitives, because the answers she's giving are like lawyer answers. Like she's had a lawyer advise her on how to answer these questions.
He said he was going to report you, or even that he did reach out to the Department of Justice. Have you heard from the Department of Justice?
I have not, and I intend on reaching out to the Department of Justice to inquire.
Really? What would your question be for the Department of Justice?
Well, there is a member of the Trump administration who is threatening and seeks to open an inquiry, and are you going to do it?
What would you learn? What do you hope to learn from that exchange?
I think it's important to know where this administration stands and if they intend on using political intimidation to silence their critics.
Oh my goodness. You cannot give aid and comfort to federal fugitives from justice. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work that way. Oh my goodness. Now, if you're new to my channel, my name's Brian. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Make sure that you subscribe, all right? Someone said education is not aid. Yeah, sure. If you have a bank robber or a kidnapper, okay, if you hold a town hall, if you hold a workshop for bank robbers and kidnappers, okay, and sex traffickers, and you tell them on how they can avoid capture by federal agents, you're a criminal yourself. You just got to change it from migrants to bank robbers, and it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Exactly. Now, tonight's the big night. Mexico and Canada, the import taxes are coming.
But very importantly, tomorrow tariffs 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start. So they're going to have a tariff. So what they have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States.
See, these cars that are made, what is the Canadian brand of car? I don't know. The cars that they make in Canada are American. And all Trump is doing is getting the car manufacturers to start making their cars in the United States, and there's no tariff then.
On Mexico, and that'll start. So they're going to have a tariff. So what they have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States, in which case they have no tariffs. In other words, you build, and this is exactly what Mr. Wei is doing, by building here. Otherwise, they'll build, if they did them in Taiwan to send them here, they'll have 25% or 30% or 50% or whatever the number may be someday. It'll go only up. But by doing it here, he has no tariff, so he's way ahead of the game. And I would just say this to people, but very important.
Okay, so there it is. Tonight's the night. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, this is, let me pull up this next clip. Hold on. Okay, here's President Trump again at the White House.
The United States has been taken advantage of for 40 years. The United States has been a laughingstock for years and years. That's why this gentleman is built in Taiwan instead of building here. It would have been better if he built here. If we had a president that knew what they were doing, and we had a lot of them very bad on trade. Look, I'm a huge fan of Ronald Reagan, but he was bad on trade, very bad on trade. He allowed a lot of people, a lot of business to be taken. So I say that with due respect, because he was so great on other things, but he was bad on trade. We are setting records right now.
Yep.
Records like nobody has ever.
This is the thing. Have you ever, when presidents, other than Trump, when the other presidents have press conferences, all they talk about is all the American taxpayer money that they're going to give away somewhere. I've lost track. How many times since President Trump has been in his second term has he had a press conference where he's announced that some foreign company is going to invest billions of dollars in the United States? This is unheard of. He may be the first president ever to do something like that.
Seen before. When you have companies like this coming in, and almost 40% of their company in one signature is going to be devoted to what he does, which is one of the most important businesses in the world. That's an unbelievable thing. When Apple now is going to start building all of their plants here, all because of what we've done.
That's right.
In terms of, it's not because he likes me or they like me. They don't probably like me at all. I don't know. I think he likes me a little bit at least. But you know what? It's the incentive we created, or the negative incentive. I mean, it's going to be very costly for people to take advantage of this country. They can't come in and steal our money and steal our jobs and take our factories and take our businesses and expect not to be punished. And they're being punished by tariffs. It's a very powerful weapon that politicians haven't used because they were either dishonest, stupid, or paid off in some other form. And now we're using them.
There you go. It doesn't get better than that. Do you know of any other presidents that have had press conferences where they bring out business leaders from other countries that are going to invest billions of dollars in the United States? I've never seen that before, Trump, in this second term. I've never seen that before. And he does it like every week. I've lost track how many times and how many billions. I don't know if, do you know how many billions? It's hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. And he's only been there a few weeks, a month. Exactly. Now, if you're new to my channel, my name's Brian. This obviously is where MAGA comes to talk. Make sure that you subscribe, all right? And if you're already subscribed, if you could like the video, that would help a lot too. Now, AOC, who's gaining lots of weight and is concerned about being arrested for helping federal fugitives, she's also pretty upset that Jasmine Crockett's getting all the attention now that she used to get. It's hard for AOC to get on TV. She's going on NPR, which nobody listens to. Jasmine Crockett's just lost her mind.
So, unfortunately, we have someone that is occupying the White House, and as far as I'm concerned, he is an enemy to the United States.
Oh, well, as far as she's concerned, well, okay. Who cares about Jasmine Crockett's concerns?
So, unfortunately, we have someone that is occupying the White House, and as far as I'm concerned, he is an enemy to the United States. He swore an oath just like the rest of us. But right now, when you are literally putting us at risk, all because of what? Because you want to convince your followers that you should be a dictator too, that you should never leave the White House?
Never leave the White. He comes to Florida every weekend. What does she mean, never leave the White? Oh, she means be president forever? Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Would you? I wouldn't mind President Trump being president for life.
Because you don't believe that elections should take place? I don't really understand what is going on, and I don't know what it's going to take to get people to wake up.
Oh, my God. You know, all these people on the left who say we're in a cult. A cult is a small group of fanatics. We're the majority, right? Trump just won the national election. He won all the battleground states. And Trump flipped a bunch of counties and blue states red. They're the cult. But you know, Jasmine Crockett, as dumb as you may think she is, oh, Robert just gifted 10 memberships. Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you so much. And if you were lucky enough to get one of those memberships, remember, your name stands out in a different color so I can see you better in the chat. And you have access to a bunch of members-only emojis there, so you can go check those out. But I don't think Jasmine Crockett believes anything that she's saying. I just think she's saying these stupid things to get on TV and placate her her base. But, you know, Mark Kelly, who's a real creep, and he's a weirdo. You know, white guys, when they start losing their hair, well, thank you, $22.99 super sticker. Thank you so much, Hafren. Appreciate that. White guys, when they go bald, should not shave their heads. They look like aliens, okay? He's got ears. He looks like Mr. Clean with big ears. I mean, luckily, I haven't lost my hair. But if I was going bald, I'd probably go the Tim Pool route. Since he's bald, you know, going bald, he wears a hat. I would just keep my MAGA hat on. I wouldn't shave it. If you're trying to cover up your baldness, why do they decide to go completely bald? But anyway, that's the least of Mark Kelly's problems. He's a piece of work. Here he is with Jen Psaki talking about the White House meeting with the president, the vice president, and Zelensky.
Watching Republicans in that Oval Office, but I wanted to start by just asking you about That meeting with Zelensky you attended by a bipartisan group, what was that like, and what was the response in the private room to him?
Well, Jen, I think we all have a little bit of PTSD, even though we weren't in the Oval Office meeting, right? I think all of us, a lot of people across the country collectively. The contrast between the two meetings was quite remarkable. With Zelensky that morning, I think there were about 10, maybe a dozen of us, Democrats and Republicans. It was very constructive. I would say
very constructive. Yeah, because they're all getting rich. The thing with Zelensky, when he went in this meeting with Mark Kelly and all these lunatics, okay, they all have Trump derangement syndrome. It's like going into a room with the trolls from the chat room here. And because they have Trump derangement syndrome, they don't see Trump in his true light. He's very smart, very brilliant, very calm, cool, and collected, always has a plan, knows exactly what he's doing. But because they're suffering from stage 4 Trump derangement syndrome, they think he's stupid. They think he's got these ego problems. And they got Zelensky all worked up, and they said, this is what you... Now, keep in mind, I don't see Mark Kelly or any of these big shots in that room confronting Trump face-to-face. But they put Zelensky, you go in there, and you do this, and you say that, and you handle this, and he'll cave, and we'll be able to keep our money coming. That's what happened. They gave him very bad advice. Mark Kelly is partly responsible for the way that went down Friday, which actually was good. The way things went down on Friday was good. We can wash our hands of these gangsters in Ukraine.
One of the most interesting things about it was that at the beginning of the meeting, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Roger Wicker, senator from Mississippi, asked the cameras to leave. And then we got down to business.
Oh, yeah, that's what... We got down to business when no one could see what we were doing in a secret room with no recording devices. And he thinks that makes it look... Trump's doing everything live on TV with the press there and live. And he's like, we took the cameras down. We sent everybody out. Nobody could hear us. Nobody could see us. That's when we got business. He doesn't even... He's spent too much time in space.
Zelensky that morning, I think there were about 10, maybe a dozen of us, Democrats and Republicans. It was very constructive. I would say one of the most interesting things about it was that at the beginning of the meeting, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Roger Wicker, senator from Mississippi, asked the cameras to leave. And then we got down to business. Zelensky, as he always is.
Then we got down to business.
This guy is habitually thankful to the American people, to the United States Congress, to the president. So it was constructive. Not a single one of us expected what happened in the Oval Office to happen. And I have to say that was a mistake. I think it was a miscalculation by the president.
Which president made the mistake? Zelensky? Is he talking about Zelensky or Trump?
Bullying an ally of ours makes us look weak.
Ukraine is not our ally. They're our patron, okay? They are not our ally. What's Ukraine do for us? What are they allied with us to do?
And when we are weak, we are less safe. The American people should make no mistake about that. What happened in the Oval Office was a complete and utter disaster. And it puts us in a much worse situation, not only with the Russians and the Ukrainians, but with our European allies. And I hope we can repair it. There are people in that room that I think are responsible adults.
Oh, yeah? Let's hear some names. Yeah, I think so, too. There's very responsible adults in that room. President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Who else was in there? Very responsible.
They weren't speaking out. Marco Rubio, I voted for him. He got strong bipartisan support in the Senate.
Well, Marco Rubio agreed. Marco Rubio was the one who kicked Zelensky out of the White House. Mark Kelly's forgotten that one.
I wish he would have said something. Mike Waltz, the same. I think he spoke a little bit in the room. But I think it's going to be up to them and other folks in the administration like them to try to put this back together.
Well, there's nothing to put back together. Trump said today that, let me pull this up. This is Peter Doocy on Fox. He has to apologize to the president.
I have been told by a senior official here that nothing's going to happen with this minerals deal until Zelensky goes in front of cameras and makes an explicit public apology for the way that he behaved himself, behaved in the Oval Office with that meeting. I have been told...
See, Trump doesn't even want the minerals anymore. He's like, we don't need your stinking minerals. You're on your own. You know, it would probably save us a lot of money. If you're new, make sure that you subscribe. No, that meeting, not only did it go down perfectly, it helped us in the long term. And I saw this, listen to this. This is so bizarre. You know, Stephen King. Any of you guys know anything about Stephen King? You know, the writer. Most of his books really suck, okay? Don't judge his books based on the movies. The movies that are based on his books, a lot of them are really good. I mean, what do you know? But if you read any of the books, you know, I remember Salem's Lot. I loved Salem's Lot when I was a kid. It was with David Soul. I got the book, and I think I was like 200 pages in. There wasn't like a vampire yet. Yeah, Running Man with Schwarzenegger. That's a great movie. I got the book. It has nothing to do with what you see in the movie, you know. And I've read a couple of his other books. I think when Stephen King does his writing, I think he gets paid by the word from the publisher. Because very wordy, a lot of pages. But listen to this. Liberal author Stephen King thinks Donald Trump and J.D. Vance ganged up on Ukraine's president to distract from anger over Elon Musk's spending cuts. This guy, he's out of his freaking mind. Stephen King thinks that the country are upset that all this government waste has been exposed and is being cut off. That tells you where his mind is. Zelensky has no intent. Well, a friend of mine texted me today and said, what if Zelensky has already signed a mineral deal with someone and he doesn't have it to give to the United States? Would you be surprised at that? Some secret? I would not. I would not be surprised at that at all. Yeah, Stephen King, he can go to Ukraine, yeah. I forgot about Stephen King. I haven't heard about him in a while. I thought he quit X. He's back on X. I thought he quit when Trump was reelected. Some people are saying that he might have signed a mineral deal with Britain. I don't know. But there's been, 3 or 4 times he said he's going to sign it, then he doesn't. There's a reason why. There's something up with that. No doubt about it. Now, if you're new, make sure you subscribe, all right? My name's Brian. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time. Take care.